Gillyflower on. Today I'm inspired by the Gillyflower. Okay, so I went into my liquid watercolors and I thought, you know what, I'm going to use this ultramarine red violet. It looks a lot like the purple that's in the Gillyflower, and I'm going to just show you guys what it's like to work with liquid watercolor. And some of you may have used this already, or you may have used Bombay ink. They kind of act the same as far as if you put water down and then you put the pigment in, you're going to get this whoosh. See it? It goes whoosh. It just spreads across the paper. You don't have to do much. It does the work for you. So what I'm doing is I put like some shape down with my wet brush, and now I'm going in with the applicator tip, dropping in some of the pigment and also using the tip to draw with. So you can have fun with this. You could draw the outer leaf or the outer petals with that applicator tip. So sky's the limit. There's so many things you could do. Okay, so now I put more water down. This time I put too much water down. And this one ends up getting away from me. I've got too much pigment right there. It just went down way too much pigment. There's way too much water. But this is a prime example. This was a perfect one. This is a perfect painting for me to show you when things are in control and when things are out of control. Okay, the bottom one will end up being out of control. The one at the top is very controlled. And I'm going to show you that here in 2 seconds. Right there, I was picking up a bunch of that pigment and some of the water just to kind of back it off a little bit because it was just overkill. So now I'm going in with a wet paintbrush that's clean, and I'm bumping just some edges. Don't hit every edge of the petal. Jump around and only release the pigment in certain areas, okay? And then take that brush and kind of move it outward as much as you can and make sure that brush is clean and pull that pigment, okay? But then there's the times when you do this and look what happens. There was too much water, there's too much pigment, and it is now completely spread across your paper. What do? One ply tissue paper, put it down, pull it up. You have now just picked up a bunch of that water that you need to get rid of, and it removed just a little bit of the pigment, okay? All's not lost here. I can work with that, okay? So I'm not going to fret about it. I'm not going to go in there and scrub and do weird things. I'm just going to let it be, okay? I'm going to continue on. I'm just going to make another shape on my paper, and this one ends up looking like a lily. So you just, whatever happens, happens. You just get some water down, put some shapes down, and see what you can create out of that. That's what's fun about it. You just don't know what you're going to get. You might get some pleasant surprises. Now you can also change this up a little bit. You don't have to do all of them all purple. You could do different colors here also, but just keep in mind the minute you start introducing the colors, make sure they play well, nice together. Okay, keep the cools with the cools and the warms with the warms. If you mix the cools and the warms, you're going to get mud. So just be careful if you're bringing other colors in and you have that much water going on, because you don't want a big muddy mess. So now also the other thing is, I went in there and there was way too much going on, so I just went in and blotted. Now I'm going to go back in and rebuild because there was an overkill. There was too much happening on that bottom left one there. So now I'm just going to go in, just put a little texture in there and some pigment, and now I'm going to go in and loosen things up and release that pigment and get it to move and create something out of it. But keeping in mind, I'm not trying to push my brush around so that it looks like you're trying to form it into certain just don't be precise with it. Just be quick about it. The quicker you are with it, the looser it will be. The more you try to overthink it and try to be technical, I don't know what the word is. The minute you try to make it look like something is the minute that you start killing it. Okay, this is Green Apatite Genuine. I am just going to go in and put some stems on some of these flowers. Now, the one that ended up looking like a lily, it ended up changing, okay? The more I played around with it, the more it kind of has that look of that head of that gillyflower. Now, these, if they were real gillyflowers, there would be several of them kind of together on one stem. And I opted not to do that. I was just going to be inspired from one of the flowers from the gillyflower, and I'm not even going to put the leaf in here because I like the long stems. I liked what I was seeing at this point, okay? And I knew I didn't want to go much further. I may add just a little bit more information just for the composition. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the composition because that's what's coming into play here with my creating here. When I'm creating, I'm also looking at like, okay, I've got a lot of white here on this big sheet of paper. But these flowers are kind of they're coming from the top right going down to the bottom left. So I want to continue that composition. So I will be bringing in some little buds and balancing things out. And you'll see all this come into play in just a moment. Now I'm just going in. I have to go in and blot there. Just lift some color so I can put some dark green in, just so you can kind of see it. Otherwise it would just, you wouldn't see it. So now I'm just dropping in some of that Green Apatite Genuine into the centers, because if you look at the gillyflower, it's got green and green centers. So so I added that in. But something that's not in the gillyflower is what I'm going to do here. I'm going to bring in some opera pink here in just a moment because I like an unexpected color coming into play. A little something, something somewhere. So let's see, what am I grabbing here? Okay. I'm putting a little bit of that liquid watercolor right there in the well. And I'm going to use my paintbrush for that in just a moment. But right now I'm going in with the Green Apatite Genuine and I'm just creating some little buds and keeping in mind the composition. And I'm just kind of rolling my brush just a little bit there, just to make some shapes. It's falling on wet paper in some areas and falling on dry paper in others. So you're going to have some areas that are going to kind of bleed out and some that are a lot more hard edge where they're controlled. Now I'm going to go in with just a little bit of that liquid watercolor of that aquamarine red violet, and that you can see that that's really wet there, and that one in the center is just kind of going a little crazy. I'm not overly concerned. I just know I have to do something with it. So it really, the minute I touch that, you can see how the stuff, you have to work with it. And you have to, if you're trying to make it look like something and then it does this and it's not doing what you wanted, but it's doing what it wanted, you might have to go with what it wanted. okay? And that's what the case was here. Of course, I'm trying to put like a little bud there with little purple peeking out of it, and a whole flower in the background is starting to happen. But that's okay. I'll work with it. So it's all about, don't freak out. Just have fun. And also just don't close your paintings in. Please, 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 I beg you. Don't close your paintings in. Keep a lot of it bright and white. And that means there's got to be a lot of spaces where there is no paint. And that will help your painting so, so much. The minute you think you have to push pigment around everywhere, you've lost control. And a lot of times when we work as artists in acrylic or oils, we're so used to covering every area of our canvas or paper, whatever substrate we're using. We're so used to covering it all. That's not what we're going to do here with watercolor, okay? We don't want to do that. We want to make sure we retain areas of bright and light, okay? This is where your light source is coming from. That white paper is your light source. Don't close off the light, okay? So I'm really loving this, okay? This is looking really very, very pretty. You could, at this point, as a beginner, you could stop right here and not get into the backgrounds. Okay, you don't even have to get into the pop of color if you didn't want to. But I'm just going to keep going because I don't know how to stop sometimes. So I've got my opera pink, and I'm going to put that opera pink in because I love myself some opera pink. Oh my gosh, I sound like I'm from the South. Okay. See, I'm saying right here, beginners, you could stop right here. Correct. And the advanced, keep going. Okay? Go ahead. If you're advanced, keep going. Get some pop of color. You could even use turquoise or something fun in here. Okay? Think outside the box. Just remember, don't make mud. The minute you mix the cool with the warm, you're going to get mud. So pick wisely, pick your colors wisely for your pop of color. Now I have my liquid ink here. Now this is not UV rated ink, okay? So just know that you have got to put several layers of UV protectant on this. You're gonna have to put this behind museum UV protected glass. You're going to just know if you use this stuff that it can fade. So I'm just giving you a little heads up, but I'm going in and I'm just creating some really soft sky effect, okay? And I'm going to bring in an extra thing here. Don't leave, because I'm going to bring in a little bit of soap. You're thinking, soap? What the heck's she going to do with soap? Yeah, I'm going to bring in some soap. And so don't run off. Don't run off. Okay, so I'm creating that atmosphere around the flowers. But do you see where there's still a lot of white? That's so important. Please, 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 I can't stress it enough. Make sure you're doing the same thing. Make sure you're doing, don't close it in. If it looks like a hot mess, just keep going, because guess what? As it comes together, it'll start pulling together. Now I'm trying to make sense of that bottom right quarter because, you know, there's nothing there. It's just white. Now, we don't have to fill that all in necessarily, but I am bringing some down just a bit more. And I'm doing it ever so lightly. Now, this, you could stop right here at this painting also. You don't even have to go any further than this. Okay? But you can keep pushing the envelope and having fun. And sometimes that's all what it's, I just want to have fun and I want to experiment and I want to see what happens if I do X, Y, Z. Okay, so I just brought in just a little bit darker. I just darkened that blue up there at the very top. Liquid soap. No, that's not liquid soap. This is bar soap. This is just, and see what it's doing? It's pushing that pigment around. And it's also making some little soapy bubble marks. And that'll all kind of, it creates kind of some cool effects. Okay, so it's just another little thing to play with to set your art apart, and people just say, how did she do that? They might look at your painting and say, how did she get that texture? How did she do that? Well, there you go. Soap. This is just bar soap that when I went to a hotel and there's those little soaps in the little paper wrapper, just take some of them home with you. They're perfect to throw in your studio and use. Okay, you could use liquid soap that you wash your hands with, or liquid soap that you're going to wash your pots and pans by hand with. Okay, I've not used any detergent as far as washing your clothes. I've never used that, but that doesn't mean you can't try it and see. There's so many different things that you can use to add to your painting. So again, I'm just going in. These are just small details. It's just a little bit of small detail work. I'm not getting real in there, and see, my hand's way pulled back on my brush. My hand is not real close to the tip. Being controlling, I'm not at all. I'm staying loose at all times. And right now I'm just going into some of those flower heads and just adding to them just a little bit. And that one I'm blending out a little bit. So I'm kind of assessing what is going on here. How do I move forward and just add a little bit more to these areas that may seem just a little bit on the weak side. I just feel like I need to wake it up a little bit. Opera pink. Now I'm just gonna splash it around. Do I need to do this? No, it's just another layer. It's all about learning how to create layers. Now listen, we had the original, that was a layer, right? Where we just bumped edges. Then we went in and we created a blue sky. That was a layer. Then we went in and did soap. That was a layer. Now we're going in and we're just putting just a little bit of that pink into play. That is a layer. So it's all those layers that will give your painting a little bit of dimension, which makes it really cool when somebody's standing up close to it and looking at it. And now I'm just sprinkling in some of that also, that turquoise color. This one I think is Turquoise Vive. But that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Be safe out there, stay well, and God bless. And don't forget to subscribe. Bye for now.